Hi, my name is Alexa Ovenshire. I am the customer marketing specialist over at Drata, and I am so excited to be your moderator of this installment of Ask Me Almost Anything, otherwise known as AMAA. So for those of you who don't know, Ask Me Almost Anything means exactly what it sounds like. We bring in guests who are security leaders, compliance experts, or work for companies in this industry, and we ask them almost anything, whether that be background about their career start or tips, tricks, and hot takes about the industry and where they see it's going in the future. So I'm super excited to introduce you to our guest today. And in honor of October being Cybersecurity Awareness Month, I think he is the perfect person to chat with. He is the former founder and CEO of Curricula and is now the general manager of security awareness at Huntress. Please welcome Nick Santora. Hi, Nick. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Alexa.
Of course. I'm super excited to chat with you today. When we dropped this AMAA and secured the Drata community, we got so many questions for you. So many people are pumped to, hear what you have to say. And I would love to sort of kick things off with an intro. So if you could tell us who you are, what you do, more about Curricula, just so those out there can get to know you a little better.
Yeah, I am aware of many hats. Let's put it that way. So I founded Curricula about, 7.5 years ago now. And we recently just sold to Huntress. So a lot of what I'm doing now is actually helping merge the two entities together, eventually being Huntress Security Awareness Training. So baby steps right now, a lot of moving parts, a lot of things in motion. But ultimately, what I designed Curricula for was to help educate the masses on cybersecurity and everything in between, but sugarcoat that experience a little bit with fun characters and storytelling and kind of more personality behind education. And we have a lot of room to grow, but we have a lot of people to teach in the world. So what better way to help share some knowledge than during National Cybersecurity Awareness Month with you guys?
Yeah. So I'd love to sort of get into more of your career background. I know that prior to founding Curricula, you worked in some IT and InfoSec roles. And I'm just curious if your previous experience with awareness training in those roles sort of sparked you to want to create your own company and platform.
Yes. So I work for an agency called NERC, North American Electric Reliability Corporation, just a big acronym for an agency that regulates the power grid in North America. So I spent about 7 years there doing anything and everything with cybersecurity related to compliance regulations under the NERC SIP framework. So that framework basically helps cover the assets in this country that help operate our power grid. So they're digital assets that affect the physical world. I started as an IT specialist, I think was my first role. So doing help desk stuff, security stuff, just everything. And that was right out of college. I got the job actually while I was in college and started there, and then really leaned in on the security stuff. So as I was kind of getting my CISSP and CISA, I was kind of going through the ranks. And what I realized was that I would go out to these audits for massive compliance audits at vertically integrated utilities out there. So like SOC 2 on steroids. So if you think that's hard, just you would get a peek at how difficult this is. And the fines for this regulation are up to $1 million per day per violation.
Oh,
so
wow.
Every electrical utility in this country is under some type of obligation, depending on where you fit in the electric grid. And what I kept seeing was that there was a lot of money being invested into compliance and these programs and cybersecurity, but like $0 being invested into education on any of this stuff. And what I felt was that the pulse of the industry was, let me pretend I know enough about this so I don't get in trouble, but I need to know more about this so we don't get in trouble and operate inefficiently as a company. And that's where Curricula is born, was just figuring out how do we help utilities first, and eventually branched out to many other verticals after that.
Wow, that's amazing. And I also heard that there's sort of a unique story how you met your co-founder and CTO. At least I think it's really unique. You actually met when you were kids. So I'd love to just learn more about how that relationship as children sort of spurred into, running a business together.
I asked my mom about this the other day. Joe Rucci is our CTO, one of my best friends, a co-founder on several businesses. So we met probably when we were 3 years old, I think said, when like preschool. So, we live right down the street from each other growing up. And, we've always been in each other's lives in different ways. Like we skateboarded a lot just for fun growing up. And I think we were, 10 years old, somewhere, 9 or 10 years old. And we started our first company, which is a skateboard company called Gonzo Skateboards. And
I love that.
yeah, we built websites. We had like a little team. I would order skateboards from Canada, have them shipped in, silk screen them, airbrush them, shrink wrap them. We bring them to skate shops. It was kind of getting used to running a business when we were 10. And then we, kept that running for a while, and then it kind of just fizzled out. And then we started another company. I think it was in 2013 or 2012, somewhere around there, that dealt with kind of like a ad network. So between publishers and advertisers, where we're doing about literally almost 500 million ad impressions a month that were getting served between this network. And we were kind of the middle group between those. So we ran a whole bunch of businesses under here. And what we realized was these were all good warm-ups. And we sold that one off and then started Curricula. So it was kind of oiled machine of just how to run the process and the business before we got to where we are. And then we built Curricula, ran that for 7.5 years. I recently just sold it to Huntress, and we still have some room to run for the next couple of years here to get it to where we want it to be. And then I am sure there will be more businesses coming out down the road from Mr. Santora and crew.
That's awesome. I feel like that's such a special story too, especially that you grew up together, and it seems like you both have always have that entrepreneurial spirit. So that's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I also did some research and found out that you hold a few InfoSec certs. So I'm curious to those listening, if you would recommend they look into InfoSec certs as well and pursue those. And if so, maybe what resources you would recommend to other, cybersecurity professionals to look into.
Yes. So my theory on the certs are, I don't think they're all bad. I don't think they're all good. I think there's just, cert for everything at this point. And when I got started really early on this. So when I was a sophomore in high school, I got my A+ certification and Network Plus certifications. And I think I was leaning on Security Plus at the time, but also doing Cisco certification program for CCNA. So a lot of like certification focused curriculum to basically learn the rhythm of what do I like. And I realized kind of early on, I liked a lot of stuff. And what I didn't like was like programming. I understand it. I know how to put together, a system and infrastructure and kind of logic for how that system runs. I love that part. I don't like sitting behind the computer and coding all day. I'm just not my favorite thing. And I don't really like the malware analysis part. I think there's people that are really good at that. And it's something I'm not great at. And what I did realize is that over the years, I kind of did my formal education on my own for cybersecurity and information technology stuff. And then I went to school in the business school at Rider University for business. So I was learning almost how to translate between business and the technology and kind of be able to talk the talk, walk the walk, and explain things to both sides of the equation without either demeaning someone on one side or talking over their head or under their head. And I think that was really helpful for me, at least to go that route. And then when I got into NERC, I saw everyone else had CISSP and CISA. So I was like, what do I got to do to get that? And I was barely in the workforce for the 5 years required. I studied my butt off for a year for the CISSP, crushed it. I think I over-prepared for it, which I'm fine with. I'd rather come in and have it be easy than struggle and not know. Crushed it on the first attempt and then got endorsed and got that when I think I was 25 or 26. And then got the CISA shortly after, because what I realized that I'm really good at understanding and watching processes. And that was something that I learned at NERC, was that we would go into a massive electrical utility and look at how their processes for security and operations are laid out and just talk to them. And sometimes what was rewarding out of that was that you would actually get like the light bulb moments to come out of like, oh yeah, that's silly. It's like, yep. Did you need a third party to say that was silly? Or, maybe. And I think that is ultimately what I found that audits were all about and compliance was all about. It was the identify, assess, correct language is very strong in that industry for identify a problem, assess how that problem happened and may continue to happen, and then correct it in the future. If everyone followed that kind of framework and guideline and understanding of why compliance exists, it's not to just check the box and meet a regulatory thing and say I'm good. It's like that should be the aftermath of it all. The real purpose of this stuff is that you want to run a better business, you want to operate smoother, you want to have less incidents and less risk. So don't focus too much on just that and focus more on the actual outcomes of what you're here to do.
Yeah. And fun fact, sort of moving through our last background question. So I just completed my security awareness training through Curricula this last week. So looking at your shirt, I got to spend some time with Dee Dee last week. And, at Drata, whenever something suspicious happens, we always use a Dee Dee emoji because we know we got to stay on our toes with Dee. So I would love to learn how Dee Dee came to be and, the story behind her and her background.
It's an interesting one. And depending on who you talk to, you get a different story every time. I'll tell you my perspective of how it came together. When we were, first kind of figuring out what Curricula is going to be, do you remember the show Drunk History on Comedy Central?
I don't, but
they just get celebrities drunk and they tell them history stories. I don't know how they do it. It's really funny. It's ridiculous. So we were like, we could do the same thing. And so we got some booze and we were trying to record ourselves talking. It came out terrible, by the way. That was our version 1, super bad. It didn't make any sense, probably because we were drinking and hanging out. And what we realized is that we got to create kind of this storyline with these memorable characters along the storyline that keep coming back. Almost like how you watch your favorite series or sitcom or, whatever it may be. And when we asked Don Woodard, who actually works at Huntress now, Curricula, he's been part of the team since day one. And we asked him just make a hacker off the top of your head, something that's exactly the opposite of what you would think an actual hacker might look like. And he drew this character, Dee Dee's little girl, pigtails, right? It's innocent looking girl. And she had this big giant bear with her. It's like her teddy bear, but in her imagination, he's like a big giant bear. So Orzo is his name. So you ever see those two together, that's the kind of the backstory. And you can see the bear in the background of some of the videos. And so we just said, hey, make it. And that was one of the first characters that was ever made for Curricula. We have this set of characters and we're like, this is great. This is it. And we put Dee Dee inside of a couple of our NERC compliance training videos. And she was kind of like the hacker, right? She's always trying to fish people and break into stuff. And you just kind of saw her, but she didn't really have the big personality yet. And when we started to say, let's give her that personality, let's make our security awareness episode, she was the first episode we made, which was on fishing. And this is the one where, the ice cream runs out at the park and she decides to hack the ice cream company. That's her. What did someone say? That's her Bruce Wayne, parents getting killed story. That's her backstory of why she's so evil. But, the beauty of Curricula episodes, they're timeless. You can kind of watch them in any order and kind of get the same feel. So with Dee Dee, what happened was that she started taking on kind of a voice of her own out in the community. And we started hearing these stories back from customers about how they use Dee Dee, how they put her on the walls. Some customers literally hired an actress to dress up like Dee Dee, and they did videos and photo shoots and stuff. And at that point, we got to the moment where we were going to launch our fishing simulator. And I remember being on a walk and saying, why don't we just make this campaign defend against Dee Dee, and then she runs the simulator?
Yeah.
And it was just a crazy thought, on this walk, and we're all talking. I don't think anyone was super excited about it. And we were just why don't we just do it and see if it sticks? And boy, did that stick. So that's something that we think is really special about the Curricula verse, was that Dee Dee was kind of, since the beginning, one of the original characters, almost like our Mickey Mouse. And she kind of stuck out as something that was so bizarre to people that also brings people together to kind of laugh and focus on Dee Dee and her friends could be anywhere. So keep on guard at any time.
Yeah, definitely. I would argue that Dee Dee is an icon now, but I also really appreciate someone like me who's never worked in this industry before. I think using a character like Dee Dee really does show, employees going through their security awareness that whatever perception you might have of what a hacker looks like or does might not be the case. So I love Dee Dee, even though
Well,
sometimes she'll get you, but
she's sour and sweet. Oh, and by the way, Don, who drew the character, his wife's name is Dee Dee. So that's also like kind of part of how this all plays together.
that's hilarious. Okay, so now I really want to get into the real focal point of this discussion, which is security awareness. And I know that it comes in many flavors. And if you ask someone, they might explain a completely different concept of what cybersecurity awareness is. So with that, I would love to hear sort of how you define cybersecurity awareness.
Yes. So there is my position on security awareness in general, kind of the worldview of it is that it'll never be effective or do anything unless you want it to. And what I mean by that is like, you just got to care from the person who's actually there to put together the program. If you don't care, no one else is going to care. And you might get a couple people here and there that like enjoy the characters or whatever it is. But like, if you're just treating it as a compliance check the box thing to get through an audit and just like, which a lot of people do as their original focus, that's okay. Like, I'm not mad at anyone for that. I'm not upset about that. I think as an organization, we all have to learn as we grow. And security is one of those things. If you're creating a new startup or a business and you haven't focused on security ever, and you don't have anyone to focus on security, and you're trying to just get through a SOC 2 audit or something, I get it, right? You just want to check the box and get through stuff. The problem is when you stay with that attitude forever, and then that digs in deeper to the company culture that you just do a bunch of stupid things just to check the box. And when you start hearing that and people start saying that in an organization, security awareness just turns into an obligation and a chore. It's not part of the company culture. So if your company culture is like wretched and doesn't have any influence on any positivity, then everything else is going to suffer, including your security awareness program. Now, what I look at kind of the stages of maturity, I see it's really simple. Like we actually have a blog called the Curricula Simple Security Awareness Model. It goes from do nothing, do something better. Like it's that easy. And these do nothingers are people who do nothing. They like, I'm not going to get hacked. I don't have an audit. I don't care. I don't have any compliance. Insurance doesn't matter to me. I am oblivious to the world and I just use a computer and hope I don't get hacked every day without even thinking about it. That's do nothing. And I would say probably like 90% of every business out there is kind of in that like category for the small business category. Wow. So, and I hope that's getting higher because I'm just kind of like guessing on where that is. But if you go interview every small business out there, this is not their priority. This is just the do nothing. Mm-hmm. Where we need to get the world is in the do something stage. And I'm talking about the world. Anyone that uses a computer for a business and at home, you need to do something to educate yourself on cybersecurity. Do something stage is why we created the Curricula Free program, which was a way to give back to the community to say, run this for free up to 1,000 people, get a baseline education for every single employee out there without just being a bunch of crappy death by PowerPoint slides, because we want people to remember the stuff and use it practically. So the do somethingers are kind of the infant, crawl / walk stage of security awareness. And then you got the do something betters. This is where we ultimately want the world to get to at a certain point, but never will there be everyone at that do something better stage. You're always going to have people kind of in this do something to get it over with. And the do something better stage is important because as a security awareness practitioner, we lose sight of what that means. And I think the larger our organization gets, the more we get pulled back in, almost like a riptide pulling us back into the just do something stage. Just check the box, get it done for the audit. I have a SOC 2 audit coming up, get it done. I don't care. And it's like, those are stressful times. I agree. But you can't let that control your future of what a security culture looks like in your organization. The do something better organizations are the ones that don't let compliance get in the way of their security culture. Very rare to see, very difficult to maintain. It takes a lot of effort. Not saying it's easy, but those are kind of the stages that I see laid out in the security awareness world.
Got it. And then sort of bouncing off, security culture and education training for employees. Do you think that the same kind of training should be given to every employee, or should there be, additional training based off of access level or role? Do you see it any value in sort of tailoring training or the educational, awareness to different scenarios?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So I'll give you my position on this one. And it's good because we learned along the way. We spent 7 years with our ear to the ground building curricula. Like, we weren't massively funded. We didn't go VC route. We basically just like walked with our customers, and we learned so much about this industry. And as we were kind of building our platform and how people use it and listening to how people use it, what we realized was that it's good to get the same message out to everyone. Like, there's almost layers, almost like a layer cake of education inside of an organization. And at the top, you think of like company culture, right? Forget security for a second. Company culture. Everyone knows kind of like the core values in a company, what the company produces, its mission statement, for the most part, we hope. And you go down that list and you got every employee kind of bought in, as I look at it as like a professional sports team. We're all fighting for the same mission. We're all getting paid to be here. Everyone is getting paid to be here and play this game together. People come and go along the way, but ultimately we all believe in this mission. That should be good, right? That's company culture. So when you start to put in security culture and security education and all these other things, people do different jobs in a company. Like, we all know that. But without that top layer, and you just zoom into the detail layers, now there's no sense of community inside the organization. You just have a bunch of people that are going down different training paths that don't really interact or have a common theme with each other. So intentionally, the way we built Curricula, our content and our platform, was designed to give that broad layer of security culture to every single employee. So that way, people are talking about the episodes like you saw it in real life, like, oh man, I would never do that because of this. And boom, now they can have a real conversation together because we all watch the same content. And that series of episodes is built intentionally that way so you can continue that conversation forever in your organization. Now you get to the point where you say, hey, I have some chemical workers that have to handle special gloves, and they have to do a special procedure for physical security with cards, fingerprints, eye scans, and this, like, and there's only 9 people in a company of 2,000 that need to do that. And it's like, Curricula, can you make that for us? Like, we're not in the business to do that stuff. Like, I get it. That's a pain in the butt. You got to do that. Every company has stuff like this. And what we realized during coronavirus was that everyone loved what we were doing, but they wanted to say, how do I do these deeper dive trainings and make them part of this experience that you guys have put together without having to go do something else? So what we realized that if you treat training like a layer cake like that, where that there's high level for everyone, and then you got some detailed stuff, it's okay to separate those. But if you don't have a common framework at the top to bring the community together, then these extra trainings are going to be, I just say, more of a chore for your organization than actually bringing people together to talk and defend against security threats.
Yeah, that's really insightful to think about it that way, as like a base layer of, the same education and training for everyone. And thinking about the do nothing, do something better. Other than, a solution like Curricula, what are some other small steps you think businesses could take to drive awareness if they're trying to reach that do something better?
So yeah, do something better. I think the big one is, first, is you put together kind of like an ambassador group. And all that means is that company has like a board of directors, maybe advisors sometimes, maybe not, but they have, founders, maybe teammates, management team, whatever it is. You bring together people from different departments, not the IT department, not the compliance department, not the, this side of the fence, more of like, bring the, a middle manager of marketing into that team, bring a middle accountant into that team, bring the front desk person into that team. Anyway, it really doesn't matter. The purpose of this is that you get people that are in the organization that believe in the ideals and core values of that organization and people look up to. Doesn't mean you have to be the CEO or an executive. It's just someone that people respect. And we all have this inside of an organization. Like, oh man, that person like hypes me up every time I get into work. They slack me. These are part of the ambassador team. And the ambassador team doesn't need to be huge, but it's essentially people that are there to affect the success or failure of a security awareness program together. And what's important about that is you don't just put security awareness on IT's shoulders or the compliance analyst's shoulders, because what they're going to do is treat it as a chore to get it done and yell at people, do training, it's for the audit, it's for the audit. It's like, that's all good. Like, we still need that, but we also need some fun. We need some positive attitude towards like, why are we doing this? If you deleted compliance, it doesn't matter. I don't have any compliance. Let's say a world doesn't exist where probably Drata wouldn't exist if there was no compliance frameworks at all. But you move into this world to say, imagine that doesn't exist for 2 seconds and just say, why are we even doing this? And you get that team together to talk about that stuff and use the tools together. Great way to start, ambassador group. Second thing to do if you're looking to do something better is do an internal audit. And audit is kind of a tight term for this, but just an assessment, an overview, a review of your organization. Like, just get a small internal team. You don't need to hire expensive consultants. Just get a couple people that want to do this as kind of a volunteer activity. Give them a week at work. Say, do what you can to bust things. Look at our processes, try to get into our bank account, call people, do whatever you want, anything to see who has access to passwords. Which consultant contracts do we have? Interview people, talk to the accountants in your company or your CPA firm, and just try to find holes. And I know like this is kind of like what a pen test could be or should be, but like we all have this innate nature in us to like be curious. And in an organization, big or small, there's gaps everywhere. And the problem is when organizations grow and they neglect these gaps, compliance frameworks help kind of guide and keep us on track. But like, even with those, there are gaps in an organization, security holes, threats, easy manipulated processes, things like that. I can't stress enough on how simple it is just to talk with each other about those gaps and just whiteboard them, write them all down 1 week. And you will get so much info that you probably would have had to pay a consultant a ton of money to get for you. Start there. It's free, technically. And then last on my list is password managers. I know they cost money to do, but like, if you don't have a password manager as an organization for your employees and endorse that, like, big mistake, crazy mistake, because people, whether you like it or not, they are storing your passwords for your business, either in their company, like Google Docs, like in a text document, like all the time, local text documents, probably all the time, or like just random personal password managers, which is better than nothing. But you got your work accounts in a personal thing, and then they're reusing their personal passwords as your work account password. So all of this stuff is really important to talk about passwords, because that's still a thing, at least from what I know, until a new technology comes. And then last but not least is just security awareness training. Like, although it's like you said, don't like, besides Curricula, I just still think that is one of the easiest bars to lift, to say this gets you one of the quickest ROIs back on getting a community together, a culture together. And that is more important than anything else in an organization, to get people to feel comfortable talking about security, that they won't get in trouble if they find a problem.
Yeah, definitely. And I know we're getting ready to wrap things up, but I really wanted to end this discussion with sort of a fun question. And I know you've been in the industry for quite some time, so I have a feeling you have a great answer for this. But I would love to hear if you have a story of some of the best phishing lures you've seen in simulations or otherwise. I have a feeling you have a good one for this.
Best phishing, like real?
Real or a simulation?
Okay. A short one is long time ago, we had a customer, I think he was doing a LastPass testing, like of the LastPass scenario. And he was setting it up, it was late at night, going back and forth, ran a simulation through us. And he was kind of like testing things out. And then he got a notice from LastPass saying like, there's someone in Russia, like trying to get in your account right now. And he's like, oh shit. So he clicked on it, and it was actually the simulation from himself. So he forgot, he was so caught up in the moment and saw this, and it looks so real, he phished himself, which I think is hysterical, but really good.
Yes, that's the ultimate phishing lure ever.
Pretty nuts. But I mean, there's so many of them. I like off the top of my head, I can't really think of like where the top one is, but I think what I noticed about phishing in general is like you could always fish someone, like 100% success rate. It's a guarantee you're going to get someone. I think it's the matter of like consciously, you have to make a decision at all times of the day and night to understand, like, you just don't click on anything ever. You just can't do it. I've almost got caught multiple times in off hours. I see something. It's like, man, is this a new software that like this company is now using and didn't announce it to anyone? Or is it like a hacker? And half the time I can't even tell, even if it is real, because they use like weird marketing automation tools that like bury the links and all this stuff. So the safest bet, just don't click on anything ever. And if you're unsure, go directly to the service. But yeah, other than that, I can't really think of anyone off the top of my head that's like a wow factor. I just think that self-phishing one is probably one of the funniest stories.
Yeah, that's a cybersecurity awareness month hot take. Never click on anything. And that's why Dee Dee's so great, because in the back of your mind, you're always like, it could be Dee Dee trying to get me to click on it. Well, with that, Nick, we got through all of our questions. I know that was a lot, but this was a very educational discussion. And I know those listening truly value your insight and expertise. So thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you for having me, and have a good rest of Security Awareness Month.
Yes, I want to wish everyone out there a happy and safe Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And please head over to Secured the Drata community. We have more AMAAs coming up in the future with some amazing guests. So head there and drop your questions, and we will see you on the next installment of Ask Me Almost Anything. Bye.